Hey, what's up guys? It's Hasard. Today we're going to be talking about what it's like to go supersonic in a modern fighter.
Crash the windows and everything, Jesus Christ.
Before we get started, if you're new to this channel, my name is Hasard. I'm a fighter pilot for the Air Force. Spent the first half of my career flying the F-16 and now I fly the mighty F-35. As always, if you're enjoying this channel, make sure to like it and then make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications. I do occasional patch giveaways and other things like that to subscribers, so make sure to subscribe if you're into that. So let's first talk about what supersonic is. So supersonic is when you go faster than the speed of sound. So faster than the sound coming out of your mouth, reaching other people's ears. A good example of this is thunder and lightning. So when you see lightning, that's traveling at the speed of light, that's near instantaneous, and then it takes a few seconds for thunder to get to you. That's traveling at the speed of sound, which is about 750 miles an hour. Now, the reason this is a big deal is because when an aircraft is going through the air, it creates pressure waves. And the faster it goes, the more these pressure waves compress. Once you go supersonic, all those pressure waves have compressed into a single high energy wave, and it can actually create damage on the ground. So the highest ever recorded sonic boom is by an F4 that was traveling at 100 feet supersonic, and it created 144 pounds of pressure per square foot. So it's not enough to blow over a house or something like that, but it is enough to shatter windows. So imagine just standing on top of a window, 144 pounds, that's probably gonna break the window. Now, a lot of people think they've seen a plane go supersonic, so they go to air shows and they see those high speed passes. They are not going supersonic, so they're going transonic. So transonic is when parts of the airflow are going supersonic over the aircraft, but the aircraft itself is not going supersonic. So you might ask, how is that possible? Well, let's look at the wing. So a wing is designed to be curved on top, flat on the bottom. So when the airflow hits the leading edge, it separates, and then the airflow needs to speed up to go over that curved area on top. So there, the air is flowing faster than the aircraft is actually traveling through the air. So bits and pieces on the aircraft will be going supersonic for a transonic pass. I heard a story from one of my friends who's a Thunderbird pilot. He was saying that they're not allowed to deploy their speed brakes above, I think it was like 0.97 Mach, because that creates small shock waves on the speed brakes and that can damage people's hearing. So back in the day, people thought it was impossible to go supersonic. The reason is because you incur a lot of drag once you're going supersonic. So you need powerful engines. You also need the aircraft to be shaped properly. And then there's a third reason called Mach tuck. So Mach tuck is something that was discovered in World War II by pilots who were approaching the speed of sound in a dive. So think of P-51 or Corsair. They're getting up to, I don't know, 0.8, 0.9, 0.95 Mach, and shock waves were starting to form on the leading edges of the control surfaces. And so these shock waves would propagate outward and it would prevent air from hitting the elevators on the aircraft. And so they would get into a dive and they would not be able to pull out of the dive, and unfortunately they would impact the ground. So what engineers did is they did something smart. They made the whole control surface move. So on like an F-16 or F-35, we don't have elevators. We have a horizontal stab. And so this whole thing moves to prevent Mach tuck. It also gives more surface area to maneuver the jet. So the first aircraft to go supersonic was the Bell 1, piloted by Chuck Yeager. So unfortunately, he just passed away at the ripe age of 97. So he lived a hell of a life. But he was able to go supersonic. It was extremely difficult. Here's a clip from The Right Stuff showing just what the process was like. All right, so my first experience going supersonic was in the T-38. So the T-38 is a supersonic jet trainer designed back in the 50s. It's what we fly during pilot training after we're done flying the T-6s. So T-6s are high performance prop planes. We move on to the T-38. And so engine technology wasn't that great back in the 50s. And so they wanted the plane to go supersonic, so they had to make it extremely aerodynamic, so it's almost like a dart, and the engines are small. So it has pretty good high-speed handling capability, terrible low-speed handling capability. So a lot of pilots have actually killed themselves trying to learn how to land this aircraft. And back in the day, everybody who was an Air Force pilot flew the T-38. Now it's only people who have the potential to fly fighters that fly the T-38. Everybody else goes and flies the T-1, which is like a business jet. And so those are the pilots that go on to fly the tankers and the transport aircraft. So before I got to pilot training, there's a ride in the syllabus called the Zoom and Boom ride. So you would go with an instructor, you would take the jet up, and you would go supersonic. By that point, you'd pretty much be out of fuel. You'd come back and land. So the Air Force decided that pilots weren't getting a lot of training out of this. As instructor pilots, we're always trying to think, how can we maximize the students' training? So they took that out, but they do have some solo rides in the T-38 to inspire confidence, because typically you're going out and flying with instructors, but as a fighter pilot, you're almost always going out flying by yourself. So these solo rides were designed to inspire confidence in the student. So I took the jet out on one of these solo rides and I decided I had to see what it was like to go supersonic. So I took off, got up to about 20,000 feet, plugged the jet into blower. So blower is afterburner or reheat if you're British. I did a video last week. I'll make sure to link it up here on what afterburner is and what that feels like. But basically they spray fuel into the exhaust, light that off, and there's a big flame that comes out of the back of the jet. And so plugged in a blower, I was going about 0.85 Mach, accelerated 0.9, 0.95, started slowing down at that point, my acceleration at least, 0.97, 0.98, increased my dive, and got up to Mach 1.0. So unfortunately, there's no confetti, there's nothing that happened. All I could tell is on my instruments that I was going Mach 1.0. I decided to push it, maybe those instruments were off, 1.01, 1.2, I think I got up to 1.04 and still nothing. So it was pretty anticlimactic to be going supersonic, to be in the jet. So that's what I was like going supersonic the first time. Now flying the F-16 and then flying the F-35, we go supersonic all the time. So it's not a big deal to go supersonic. In fact, several times throughout a mission, we'll be going supersonic. The biggest thing in training that we're worrying about is not booming any towns. So we'll go supersonic in MOAs, so military operating areas, and ranges. So MOAs can be above small towns, so we'll segment out the towns to make sure we're not booming them and breaking their windows and disrupting, their lives. But even over the countryside, we'll make sure that we're not giving too big of booms to the ground. So usually it's above 10,000 feet. So if we're greater than 10,000 feet over the countryside in a MOA, we can go supersonic. And that's way less of a shockwave than what that F4 did back at 100 feet. But even though most jets are designed to go supersonic, F-16 designed to go Mach 2, oftentimes when we throw stores on there, so targeting pod, fuel tanks, ECM pod, missiles, or like when I was in Afghanistan, we were flying with rocket pods. So rocket pods are like big trash cans on the side of the jet. And you can't go supersonic, otherwise it'll rip those things off. So we were limited to 0.95 Mach throughout our sorties. And some of my best memories are getting done with a sortie, busy sorties, 6 hours of close air support, and we'd be hundreds of miles away from our base. And so we'd plug it into min afterburner. We'd be flying home at like 0.94 Mach. And it would still take us like 45 minutes to get home. And I'd have my night vision goggles on. It would be the middle of the night. And I'd just look up. I could see all the stars. I could see the Milky Way. It's really, one of the best memories I have from being downrange. So right now, it's pretty much just military pilots that can go supersonic. Back in the day, we had the Concorde. So the Concorde was a supersonic airliner, and it could actually maintain Mach 2.0 over the Atlantic. And so it would take 3 hours to go from New York to London, which is crazy. It takes double that now. Unfortunately, tickets were about $10,000 for a round trip, so it wasn't economical. So it shut down in 2003. But just last week, the FAA released rules on what it's going to take for civilian airliners to go supersonic over the US. And so this is a big deal. There are several startups. Boom Technologies is one of them, developing a Mach 2 aircraft that can carry 55 passengers. And also Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic are developing spacecraft to be able to take people, passengers into space. Now it's not going to go around the world, so you'll just go touch space and then come back down. But those are going to need to go supersonic to be able to get up there. So there you go. That's what it's like to go supersonic. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to like it. Make sure to subscribe, turn on notifications. Again, doing giveaways to subscribers. and I'll talk to you next time.